Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today we have another exciting guest. His name is Garry Hubbard, and he's running for office with the Green Party. So welcome to the podcast, Garry.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me on your podcast and being able to express my views and maybe talk to your audience to get some supporters, some volunteers, and maybe some actual people joining the Green Party.
Yes, that would be awesome. Let's hope that happens. So let us get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
All right, Andrew, a little background for myself. You know, I'm a military veteran. I'm a small business owner in the commercial and residential constructions field. You know, I'm a father and a husband. I've got 2 grown children, a daughter and a son, and I've lived in the area since 1973 where I'm running for office. I'm running for the 2nd Congressional District for the House of Representatives in Congress.
Oh, my.
As a Green Party nominated and endorsed candidate.
That's good. So you mentioned that you were with the Green Party, and we discussed that at the top of the program. So kindly tell our audience how you got involved in the Green Party in the first place.
Well, Andrew, first and foremost, I have run for office, but I run as a Democrat because the views that I thought they held were better than the Republican views. And quite frankly, I've been disillusioned along the lines of both the Democrats and the Republicans. I don't think they really care about the American public. Matter of fact, I think they just care about their own agendas and not for the agendas of what the working man really deserves.
Sure. So since you're a business owner, how has that informed your political views?
Well, Andrew, you know, I've been a business owner. I've been in business as a sole proprietor since 1980, and I finally turned the business over to my son. Oh. And as far as actually shaping my views, I run my business as I run my campaign. I believe in equality. I believe in diversity. I believe in people getting a second chance. I paid the same amount of wage. If a man or a woman did the same job, they made the same amount of money. Quite frankly, you know, women support their families and men support their families. Sure. So, and I never paid a minimum wage. You know, it's a shame in this country that 2 gallons of gas is more than a federally minimum wage of $7.25 an hour.
Yes.
Inflation is eating our country up, and quite frankly, we're getting close to a recession with the rise in inflation. So we've got to be careful how we go about this. We're going to have inflation for the next 2 years. We've got to have some people that understand how finances actually works. It's not just raise the interest rates and inflation goes away. That's not how that works.
Sure. So, Garry, kindly tell us about the demographics of the area of the district you're running in.
Well, we've had a re-engineered map is the kindest way to put it. The map itself is a lot different. You know, the 2nd Congressional District of Virginia, we now encompass the Isle of Wight, Franklin, Suffolk, Chesapeake, all of Virginia Beach, and the Eastern Shore, and the Delmarva Peninsula, which is really the Eastern Shore, Northampton and Accomack counties. I think there's a population close to 900,000. And as far as the density or largest of the area, it is extremely huge.
Is it a red or blue district?
Well, it's it's leaning toward more of a red district. It was a blue district, and we're hoping for a purple district.
Yes.
But you know, Andrew, let's face facts. Both the Democrats and the Republicans stand on the Capitol steps, point at each other, and say, you're the evil party. The other one says, you're the evil party. So the status quo is both parties are evil. So if you vote for one party, you're voting for the lesser of two evils, but you're still voting for evil. Sure. I think it's time we work on legislation and not aggravation. Yeah. We've got to work on some legislation that's going to benefit the people for a change.
Yes. So how do you plan to implement your green vision in this race?
Well, Andrew, let's talk about climate change for a minute.
Sure.
We're already paying out billions and billions and billions of dollars due to the weather caused by climate change. We still see huge amounts of carbon. We still see huge amounts of methane. And we've got to get some of these cars off the road. Now, Andrew, let me ask you a question.
Go for it.
And I think it's highly ironic that we buy our renewable resources from China. They manufacture our generators, our turbine blades, and our solar panels, and then ship those very renewable resources on container ships that burn huge amounts of oil, bringing them to our shores, whichever shores that it is, whichever ports in Los Angeles or Virginia. Now, I think that is extremely ironic. We need to bring our manufacturing facilities back to the United States so we no longer have to worry about wars being fought over different resources, different crude oil or natural gas.
Sure, makes sense.
And we need a living wage, Andrew. I don't believe in a minimum wage. $15 an hour is not a living wage. We need a living wage so people can actually breathe out for a change instead of always breathing in, worrying about if they can pay the rent, buy gas, pay utilities, and actually have a little bit left over to maybe go out and be a customer in some restaurant somewhere. You know, we've got to understand the poor and the working poor, and nobody working 40 hours a week should be still live in poverty.
Exactly.
So we need to get a handle on that situation. We really, truly do. We need to make sure we've got clean air, clean water, and clean soil to grow our ground in. And now with the Supreme Court handing down a decision that the other court, which stated that there's 20 states saying that, well, we can still have pipelines or we can still pollute the water in your state, and there's no rhyme or reason. We've got to understand that people need clean drinking water. Ask the people in Flint, Michigan how the lead drinking water worked for them.
Good point.
So, Andrew, what commodity is lacking in Washington, D.C., either for the Senate or for the Congress? And it's the commodity of common sense, which should be in abundance, but it's rarer than some of the earth metals that we need for defense.
Yeah.
We see nothing but fighting. We see nothing but infighting. Democrats fighting Democrats. Republicans fighting Republicans. And I think it's the duopoly has just about had their chance of doing nothing. We're at a crossroads, in my opinion, Andrew. We can either go left or right, or we go straight ahead with the same status quo and look for a different result. I believe it was Albert Einstein that once said, at the height of insanity is keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So if you still vote for a Democrat or still vote for a Republican and hope some legislation is going to be for the common man or the working man, you're going to be sadly disappointed. We're watching how we still subsidize big oil companies to the tune of over $100 billion. We no longer hold the large plastic corporations accountable for the cost that we have to absorb for recyclables. They should be held accountable. We're watching how big pharmaceutical companies is strangling the very people that are trying to buy their medicine. We have over 40 million people in the United States that are diabetic. Yet we see them trying to ration their insulin, some different forms of inadequate insulin, and we're watching people die because they simply cannot afford that. We need a universal health care, Andrew. Health care is a right. It's not a privilege. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness means just that. We need to understand that dynamic. If we don't understand that, if we let our American people die, pretty soon we won't have it in America. Everybody will be sitting on the curb wondering how to get care. So we need to stop that. We're the only nation left on the face of the earth that actually penalize you for getting sick. You can work your entire life, get sick, go bankrupt, and lose everything you worked your entire life for. That is a wrong system to have, and we need to better pass legislation that will ensure that we have a fair health care system.
Yes, good point. Healthy people can still get in trouble too. If they get in an accident, it could all be gone. So you got a great point.
Oh, absolutely. An author, Michael Fine, I believe he's promoting a hospital-type clinic in Rhode Island that reduces the cost of going to the hospital. You can go to the clinic for a couple of $100, but if you go to the hospital for the same thing, it's like $2,000.
Oh, my.
So it shows that our healthcare system is broken. There is no health insurance companies. They don't care about your health. They care about your money. And speaking of money, Andrew, let's talk about a tax system that is blatantly unfair to the working man. We see multimillionaires and billionaires that pay absolutely zero in the federal income tax. And the reason is they have no W-2 form to be held accountable. So the wealth inequity in this country is amazing. So we need a windfall profits tax for people making over $100 million a year. And if you make over $100 million a year, the next dollar that you make over $100 million will be taxed at 20%. We need to understand that these billionaires use our infrastructure, use our roads, use our trains, use our systems to move their goods back and forth that we, the American public, have paid for.
Yeah.
It is only fair that they pay their fair share.
Sure.
And one other thing, Andrew, that I'd like to talk about is a tax amnesty program. They're talking about funding the IRS with more money, and the only reason that they would do that is they would go after the poor, the working poor, the middle class, and the upper middle class. They can't go after the multimillionaires or the billionaires. They have too many tax lawyers, too many tax loopholes. So that's a joke to say that they would go after that. They will not. But I'm proposing a tax amnesty. This is for people, the working poor, the poor, and the middle class that have not filed their income tax for 3 to 5 years and watched the IRS add interest and penalty and actually push these people to an underground economy just to survive. So no longer are they paying tax on any income that they have. We need to make sure if we give them amnesty that they can come to the work above ground for a change and contribute back to our economy.
Good point.
Same thing with student loans and student debt. We're penalizing the very people that's trying to get an education to move our nation forward. We need innovation and invention to move our nation out of this climate catastrophe that we've got looming. We're seeing more wildfires. We're seeing droughts. We're seeing catastrophic storms. it's a misnomer now to say once in a century storm. There is no such thing anymore. Each year we see storms that are catastrophic. We see years that are hotter on record. It's been projected that if we don't do anything, our global warming will reach 2.7 degrees. That is catastrophic and cannot be sustained. You know, Andrew, in antiquity, civilizations have come and gone. And the reason is they use up all the resources in the area where they're at, and they have to move on, whether they're, absorbed by the next culture, next generation. So we need to understand that we need to take care of the earth a little bit better, or we're going to be seeing a cost that we just cannot afford. From floods, from infrastructure, and quite a few things that will be devastated by the climate.
So, Garry, what is your campaign strategy? How are you going to reach the voters in your area?
Well, I will be speaking out to different groups. I will meet people at different events.
All right.
And I will try to get my message across to people that are experiencing economic hardship and ask them point blank, what has a Democrat or a Republican done for you? All I see them doing is sitting up there in Congress on the same old spinning hamster wheel put there by their donors and every now and then let off to work on legislation that they provided for them. This is not the way to legislate. This is just another way to aggravate the situation up in Washington. So we've got to understand that the working man needs a living wage. They need affordable basic housing, which there is none. Okay. They need a living wage of at least being able to support their family, being able to have some disposable income to support the local businesses, so we can get back to some semblance of normality. We've watched the pandemic devastate us. We lost 22 million jobs in the 2 years. We're still losing over 1,200 people a day to this deadly virus.
So to reach the people, are you going to do it like a lot of other people do, go by foot, door to door, or are you going to use social media? What tactics are you going to?
We'll be running social media. We'll probably do some door to door. I'm looking for volunteers.
Okay.
Without volunteers, Andrew, we're pretty well stymied. In my race, I need 1,000 signatures, and I have to do it to be on the ballot. If you don't get on the ballot, everything is moot. No matter if you're the most brilliant mind in the face of history, you can't pass legislation if you're not on the ballot. If you can't get elected, you won't be able to pass legislation. And we need legislation for the people. We don't need legislation to protect big oil. They're doing pretty well profit-wise.
Yes.
We don't need legislation to protect the large plastic industry or the big pharmaceutical industry. There's record profits being made on this pandemic that are that is so far out of the realm that it's amazing. $2.3 trillion made by these companies during a pandemic when everybody else is broke, lost their jobs, lost their houses, lost their cars, could not feed their family. This is not the way to live, Andrew.
No, Garry, it's not. So when are the ballot access signatures due?
Well, they're due June the 21st.
Okay,
so I've got to have these 1,000 signatures in to the, I believe it's the Commonwealth of Virginia is the one that's supposed to certify I'd have to get with my campaign manager, Charlotte Rose Joe, and make sure, all the T's and I's are dotted. But I think it is June 21st, Andrew, that the signatures have to be in.
Okay. We hope you can do that. That'd be great.
I think so, too. I really, I want to give back to my community. I've got, this is where I raised my family. This is where I made a business. This is where I had quite a few people working for me. This is a great area to live. But we've got some problems that we've got to address. We've got to bring these conditions forefront so people actually understand that their day-to-day life, everything is influenced by the legislation that is passed or not passed in Washington, D.C. We have to understand this, from buying a car, buying gas, buying food, and the economic impact of where you live. Did you know, Andrew, here in Hampton Roads, in some of these cities, you can't afford to live or buy a house in the city that you work for. Now, that is outrageous. So you have to commute to get a job to be able to live where you're at. That's a tough situation.
Yes.
And without universal health care, the people that can't afford health care, what are they supposed to do, Andrew? Just sit on a street corner and wait to die? They could go to the hospital and cost us more money. We spend over $4 trillion a year just in health care. Now, for that kind of money, you would think America would be number one in longevity, how long we live, or our mortality, infant death would be the less of other nations, but we're down there at 34th, Andrew. Yeah. We don't have the very best insurance. People can't afford to go to the hospital even if they do have insurance due to the co-pays. Insulin, $100 a month here, $7 a month in Canada, $12 a month or for insulin in the United Kingdom. And we're looking at wars that is actually going to cause inflation. It's not the only reason to go higher. We're watching a head of a Russian terrorist federation illegally invade a sovereign nation, hoping to annex their gas reserves and their agricultural reserves. And they're willing to destroy the entire infrastructure and death and destruction and desolation to accomplish this goal. So wars are not the way to go. We need peace. We need a strong national defense, Andrew, to make sure that we have the power and the ability to protect ourselves. Unfortunately, the world is changing drastically and at speeds that we did not. Look at how we have allowed China, and freely allowed China and our CEOs to move their manufacturing facilities to China, starting back in the 90s to the 2000s till now. And then the same Democrats and the same Republicans wanted to ensure that these companies treated the Chinese worker fairly that worked in these manufacturing facilities, so when they brought these products back, the American people could buy with self-assurance that the people in China were treated well. What I want to know, Andrew, is where was these same Democrats and Republicans when the American worker lost their job and went on the bread line trying to find ways to provide food for their families or pay rent or pay utilities?
Good point.
I didn't hear one word from them at all. You know the three largest armies in the world, Andrew? The United States is first, China is second, and Germany will be third. We're watching the rearming of Eastern and Western Europe, and we're watching nations start to get into a new arms race. The only ones that profit over arms race are the people that build these weapons of mass destruction. So we're going to need volunteers. We're going to need support. We're going to need people to canvass, get my signatures so I can be on the ballot. We're going to need to get our message across. We stand for the Green New Deal, living wages, peace, universal health care, and public transportation. We need to get these cars off the road. We need ride-and-share programs. We need a mass transit. Like in Virginia, the 7 cities, we have what's known as the Norfolk Tide. We need to expand this tide system, go to different areas, so we can start getting the cars off the area. We need to transition off of fossil fuels and make sure we have more renewables. We need to make sure that the new buildings going up have solar panels that will actually lessen their economic impact on the fossil fuels. And we also need to make sure that business gets back to being business instead of trying to provide inadequate health care and substandard policies. Isn't it about time business did business instead of trying to pretend to be a health insurance company?
That's a good question.
There's quite a few businesses out there that provide health insurance, and people cannot leave a job that they sorely hate simply because they need the benefits to provide for their family. We need to make sure that they have universal health care. And not only that, is business can conduct business again. We need to make sure that our infrastructure is not a one-off deal. Infrastructure should be an ongoing process, not just a snap your fingers and one is done. That won't work. And we saw the confirmation of a new associate justice to the Supreme Court. We've seen how the Supreme Court actually provides solutions for non-existent problems sometimes. Same thing as a qualified immunity, that was a solution looking for a problem.
Yeah.
We need law and order. We don't need our law and order to be lawlessness and provide disorder. We have civil rights for a reason. We have constitutional rights for a reason. We have 27 amendments to our Constitution that we need to make sure people understand.
Yes.
We are a nation that was founded on the Constitution of America.
So, Garry, you mentioned how you need people to volunteer and support your campaign. Where's the best place that they can go to do that? Your website?
We're on Facebook, and the website is a progress in motion, but the Facebook is Garry Hubbard for Congress. Now, Garry is spelled with 2 R's, Andrew.
2 R's.
2 R's. Garry Hubbard for Congress. And my email is Garry Hubbard 1948 @gmail.com. And my phone number is area code 757-472-7994.
All right.
And I have no problem with people that want to call me, get to know me, ask me questions. I'll answer your questions to the very best of my ability. If I don't know the answer, I will tell you I don't know the answer, but that doesn't mean I won't try to find the answer. We need to have people that's going to work for us, Andrew. We're going to have to be people that's going to build a coalition and work on legislation that will benefit the people. We can't have a coalition and work on legislation if we see nothing but aggravation from Democrats or Republicans. That'll never work. We're at a crossroads. We need to put character over party if we want to move our nation forward. We have to understand we need clean water, clean air, and clean soil to grow our food in. The billions and billions and trillions that will be spent on trying to correct the weather due to climate change is going to be astronomical if we don't get a handle on this. And to the people that say there's no such thing as climate change, let's say you're right. What's wrong with trying to clean up all the pollution, all the plastic in the ocean? What have you got to lose? But a cleaner air, cleaner beaches, cleaner earth, and cleaner drinking water.
Well put. Gary, thank you kindly for coming on the podcast today and talking about your campaign.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate you providing a platform for candidates to espouse their views and their viewpoints and hope to garner support and hope to garner donations. We need money to be able to compete with the very big corporate and dark money, and there is dark money, Citizens United, to be able to compete with the people that unfortunately can buy more TV ads, more signs, more flyers. I get in my email, just to set aside, in my email, 20 emails a day swearing that, we're going to lose if you don't send me $5. And this is from, super Democrat or super Republican. I will stand toe-to-toe with you and fight the evil forces of the duopoly party. Andrew, we need common sense for a change. We need legislation that's going to work for the common man again. We're at a crossroads that we need to make sure we actually choose a party that has character over party. And I think the Green Party actually fulfills the legislation that we're going to need for the poor, the working poor, and the upper middle class. The affluent, the super wealthy can take care of themselves. They're not going to go broke or poor or hungry. Neither are the people in Congress. We need to actually understand that children do go hungry. So when Congress let the child tax credit expire, they said, well, my child will have food, yours will not. And that is a sad state of affairs between the two parties that fight over actually having a child be able to eat daily. And Andrew, I thank you for your time. I hope people will look up Garry Hubbard for Congress and look at my email, look at my donor link. I need your support. I need your volunteers, and I need your donations. But most importantly, I need your trust.
Yes. May you get all those things in abundance.
Thank you, Andrew. I hope I've convinced you that the duopoly party no longer cares. They just want to sit on the spinning wheel and campaign 24/7 for money and spend their times worrying about what happened on January 6th. If you need a committee to do that, along with 100 staff, then something is sadly wrong with the system. They're only doing this as a political payback because they're afraid of the midterm elections this year.
Sure.
So we've got to understand that 3,500 people needs to be prosecuted. There's not enough prosecutors that are up there, so people are not going to be held accountable for years. They're just hoping to make a point that, look at me, I'm super Democrat, vote for me. And the Republican says, no, I'm super Republican, vote for me. And neither one of them care about the working man, the poor, the middle class. They care nothing about affordable housing. They care nothing about inflation or the economic impact that is having today affect each and every one of us and will be escalating. We're getting close to the R word, recession. So we need to make sure we understand how this truly works and have people up there working on legislation that will stop this runaway train and get back to a little bit of normalcy.
Yes. That would be great. We wish you all the best in your campaign and all your other endeavors.
Andrew, thank you for your time. Thank you for your platform. And thank you for putting me on so people can understand my views and viewpoints.
Of course. That's why we're here. Take care and all the best to you.
Thank you, Andrew. You as well.
Bye, Gary.
Bye-bye.